This time, the news involving the Philadelphia Eagles has nothing to do with the market, roster decisions, trades, the draft, or power struggles behind the scenes. It is a difficult story, a heavy one, a human one. One of those stories that doesn't shock only because of the event itself, but because of the brutal contrast between past and present. Kevin Johnson, a former NFL player and former Eagles defender, passed away at the age of 55 in tragic circumstances in Los Angeles. It is a story that exposes not only a loss, but a harsh reality that is often ignored when people talk about former professional athletes. Kevin Johnson was found deceased in a homeless encampment. Authorities confirmed that his death is being investigated as a homicide, according to official records from Los Angeles County. It was not a natural death. The case is under investigation, and details are still being reviewed by local authorities. What is already known is enough to leave an impact. A former NFL player who once lived at the highest level of professional football was found in an extremely vulnerable situation, in a deeply fragile social context. This story is not only about a criminal investigation, it is about trajectory, about contrast, about how life can take unpredictable paths even after moments of success, visibility, and achievement. Kevin Johnson had a real professional career. He was not a symbolic figure. He was not just a name on a roster. He played, he contributed, he appeared in official games, he wore historic uniforms, he lived inside the NFL environment. Before the professional league, Johnson was a standout at Texas Southern. In 1993, he was selected in the NFL draft by the New England Patriots. Although his early career was unstable, with stops in Minnesota and Oakland, it was in Philadelphia that he had his most consistent stretch in professional football. The Eagles signed him in 1995, and Kevin Johnson played 2 seasons with the team. He appeared in 23 games, started 6, and took part in both regular season and postseason action. He recorded tackles, forced turnovers, and even returned a fumble for a touchdown. He was part of a competitive roster inside one of the most intense franchises in the league. But, as happens with many professional players, the career was short. There was instability. There were suspensions. There were releases. After that, Johnson played for the Raiders and continued his career in the Arena Football League, where he won a championship with the Orlando Predators. Football remained part of his life for years, but gradually, as happens with so many athletes, the game stayed behind. And that is where this story becomes even heavier. Because when the sport ends, the structure ends as well. Routine, support systems, identity, purpose, financial stability, medical support, visibility, all of it disappears abruptly for many athletes. The transition from sports life to civilian life is one of the most difficult phases in any professional player's journey, especially for those who did not build lifelong financial security. Kevin Johnson was not a multi-million-dollar superstar. He did not build generational wealth. He was a real NFL player, like hundreds of others who passed throughout. The league contributed, played, and then had to rebuild their lives outside the sport without the structure that once supported them. The fact that he was found in a situation of social vulnerability reveals a reality that is rarely discussed in professional sports: the silent abandonment that many former athletes face after their careers end. There are no spotlights, no fans, no contracts, no visibility. There is only the human being. Social media quickly filled with messages from family, friends, and people close to him, mourning his death and remembering his life and career. For many, Kevin Johnson was not just a former player. He was a friend, a relative, someone with real bonds, real connections, and a real story. The reaction to this case does not come only from how he died, but from the silent question it leaves behind. How does someone who reached the NFL, who lived at the highest level of professional sports, end their life in such harsh conditions? This question is not about individual blame. It is structural. It is social. It is systemic. The NFL produces wealth, fame, and power on a massive scale, but it also produces disposability. Hundreds of players enter and exit the league every year. Few build long-term security. Many face emotional, psychological, financial, and social struggles after their playing careers end. The sport trains the body to compete, but rarely prepares the mind for life after the game. Kevin Johnson now becomes, tragically, another symbol of that poorly supported transition. Not as a statistic, not as a headline, but as a human story. The investigation will continue. Authorities will do their work. But regardless of the legal outcome, the central fact remains. A life was lost. A journey was cut short. A story that began on college fields, passed through the NFL, the Eagles, packed stadiums, and championships, ended in silence, vulnerability, and social abandonment. For Eagles fans, this is not just distant news. It is part of the franchise's history. Kevin Johnson wore the uniform. He was part of the roster. He contributed on the field. His name is part of the team's sports history, and that deserves respect. This is not a case for speculation, not for emotional exploitation, not for sensational narratives. It is for memory, for reflection, for awareness, for empathy. Because behind every helmet, every number, every statistic, and every highlight, there is a person, a real life, a real story that does not end when the final game is played. Kevin Johnson was an NFL player. He was an Eagles player. But above all, he was a human being. And this story, as painful as it is, deserves to be treated with dignity, respect, and responsibility.